Welcome to Is It Beer Yet video edition. I am Matt, and this is 13 beers for Halloween with beer number 9, Soul Grabber. And I'll tell you right off the bat, if there's any beer that I cheated to do in this project, or any cheating in this project, I should say, it was this beer. Because this beer I made last year. It's from our Halloween Horror Nights 27 event. And it was so good, I wanted to make it again. Plus, it was my future brother-in-law, Kevin's favorite beer. He actually got engaged to my sister at Halloween Horror Nights 27. His favorite beer of all the beers he's tried, so I wanted to make it. So I did put a little spin on this one. That means spin. I don't know if you knew that. I just made that up. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. So I put a little spin. I did it again. Put a little spin on this one. I made a 3-gallon batch rather than a 1-gallon batch because with him coming to Halloween Horror Nights this year, a few bottles, the bottles that I went through for tasting, some that I might have lost because there was some trub in it. Trub is the gunk at the bottom of the fermenter. The potential bottles that I had left over might not have been enough, so I wanted to keg it for him so we could enjoy something together, which that day has come and gone, and we did. So I kind of know how this already tastes, but I don't know how it tastes in a bottle. I'll talk about why this is different here very shortly. So I got some videos here. I have some pictures here for this process. And the process is not unlike what I've shown you for the 1-gallon. It's still a brew in the bag process, but instead of mashing in the bag, I am doing a true brew in the bag. So it's a larger scale, but I don't think it's going to take much for you to see the difference between what I've been showing you for 1 gallon and what I did for this 3-gallon. So the only way to actually find that out is to take a look at the pictures. So let's do that right now. So starting with the grain bill. Now these numbers, I forgot to mention this. These numbers are going to seem outrageous to what you've heard in the past 8 episodes. Remember, this is ultimately a 3-gallon batch, which means I was aiming for I was aiming for just under 4 gallons of beer to ferment because I was going to lose some in the transfer to the 6 bottles that I bottled and the 2.5-gallon keg that I put it in. So this is 4 times plus the amount of beer that we made yet in this series. So this is why these numbers seem really high. So grain bill. Base malts here, 9 pounds, 12 ounces of Pilsner malt. And here I'm taking a 10-pound bag and removing those last 4 ounces so I could just grind what's left in the bag. Specialty malts, 9.1 ounces of chocolate malt. If you saw Twisted Tater, there you go. That's where that comes from. 4.6 ounces of roasted barley, 2.6 ounces of black malt, and 2.3 ounces of Crystal 60. Now, the black malt and the roasted barley might seem low. They might actually seem like numbers to put in a 1 gallon. These are malts. A little goes a long way in color and taste. And I mean, a little goes a long way. I found that out years ago. I wouldn't say the hard way. Well, yeah, I would say, I was getting beers I wasn't expecting. Some of them drinkable, not all of them. But a little goes a long way. So here, I heat up 6.5 gallons of water treated with the Captain tablets for chlorine and chloramite that we talked about last episode. I have this vegetable steamer that I put in upside down at the bottom of the boil pot, tied with a piece of butcher's twine so I can pull it out when I get to boiling. Now, why I do that is because the bag that I'm going to put in here is nylon, and it doesn't take a whole lot of direct heat to melt it, and you don't want that. Well, you don't want your bag melted and those grains to spill out. That's a side. I just realized that's a kind of a side effect that you really don't want to. Well, you don't want to lose. You don't want to burn your bag. I don't know why you don't want to ruin your bag, and you don't want a taste of melted nylon in your beer, and you don't want all those grains to spill in. I think that was self-explanatory, and maybe I should edit everything I just set out. I don't know. We'll see what makes it to the video. So from there. Here is, I put it in the said bag, and I secure it, and it's ready for the grains. My grains are all freshly milled, ready to go. This is one of the few videos we have. This is me mashing, using the mash paddle that Quint from Catacombs of Halloween Horror Nights made me. That slices through dough balls like butter. This thing is awesome. I never have to worry about putting all my grains in it once like I do here when I have this mash paddle, because this will break everything up. So from here now, I have to, since I'm not using a cooler, I actually have to make my own insulated vessel, and I do that by wrapping some insulation around the pot, and I take this moving blanket that we have and wrap it around there, and I let it sit for 60 minutes. Now, the temperature loss is a little more on this. It's like 3 to 4 degrees, as opposed to the cooler, which is 1 to 2 degrees, but that's not bad for an hour outside. So now we take a look at the hops. So we have 1.02 ounces of Willamette hops at 60 minutes, 0.51 ounces of Willamette at 5 minutes, and then we have another addition, and this is 9.7 ounces of lactose sugar at 10 minutes. I'm going to take a break from the pictures here. I never described what this style was. That is a huge point of this beer. It is a coconut milk chocolate porter. Maybe a stout, but I think from the ingredients I'm using, it qualifies more as a porter. But it's either a milk chocolate coconut stout or porter. I like to say porter because people hear stout. When I serve it, I like to say porter because people hear stouts and they kind of shy away from it. The milk part of it, that was the lactose sugar. That's going to give it a nice creaminess. Not a direct milk flavor, but it'll take the chocolate I'm using is cocoa nibs, which we'll talk about very shortly. This kind of adds a sweetness to it that you would get in milk chocolate. So that's the style. I can't believe I started this video without talking about it. I was talking about how it was a repeat from last year, but why was it a repeat? Because it was a coconut milk chocolate porter. That was awesome. That's why we did it. So, okay, where am I? Back to my notes here. So now we're done mashing, and I removed the bag directly from the water, which is the sweet wort now, and I let it drain for about 10 minutes. And in this case, it's far more difficult to boil off this, so we're going to go right into the boil. That's a step that is not really easy with the equipment I have. It's not impossible, but I kind of skip it, and I do my best to make sure I clear as much as I can before I go into the fermenter. But we'll get to that here in a moment as well. So I do have a video here. This is where the boil comes to a roll. And then I start the timer at 60 minutes. I add the first hops, and then right after that, the gas ran out. But luckily, I have a second tank on hand. So here's a quick change of me on the tanks. Relit the fire, and we get to a rolling boil again in literally seconds. So after that, there's really nothing going on until the 15-minute mark when I actually put my immersion chiller into the boil to sterilize it. Usually I do this at 10 minutes, but I have two other things to do at 10 minutes. So 5 more minutes sterilizing my wort chiller or my immersion chiller is not going to hurt. I set up the pumps, and then that takes me to the 10-minute mark, and that's when I add the lactose sugar. And then we wait for another 5 minutes for that last top addition. Then we kill the heat. I start the whirlpool with the pump, and then I get the cold water running through the chiller in about 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That thing, if anyone's interested, that is a Jaded Hydra. It's Jada brand. Hydra is a model number. An amazing immersion chiller. 7 minutes it took to get 4+ gallons of wort down to pitching temperature. So from there, I transferred just under, I'd say 3 3/4 gallons, but I overshoot it. So I get just under 4 gallons into a carboy. I pitch a full pack of Safale US-05. That might be a little more than I needed, but that's what I ended up doing instead of measuring out that little bit that wasn't there. Then I dropped in my tilt hydrometer. It's my Bluetooth hydrometer, and the starting gravity was 1085. I don't know anyone who's watching that knows what that means, but let me tell you, that means this is going to be a big beer. Like most beers that I do are 5%, and they start at like somewhere in the 1060 range. So 1085, that means there's more sugars to ferment. This is going to be a big beer. We'll talk about that when we get to the label, because I have the actual number. It's the biggest ABV of all 13 of these. I'll give you a little preview here. So I let it ferment for a week. This one I went a little longer. So I let it ferment for a full week before I started doing the secondary additions. Normally I've been doing that in 5 days, 6 days at most on one beer, but I let this go a full week. Then I put in a full pound of shredded and toasted coconut. And then I also put in 2.4 ounces of cocoa nibs. There's the chocolate and the coconut. I let it sit for 5 days after that. Then I cold crashed it for 2 days, which I've done with every beer. I failed to mention that in some others. I'm kind of trying not to repeat everything at this point, but all of these have been cold crashed for the record. So I cold crashed that for 2 days in a 40-degree refrigerator. Then I bottled 6 bottles. That's one of these bottles here. And I kegged the rest, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I don't have any videos or pictures of that, but I kegged the rest. But there's something I want to do for this video. But first, before we get to that, let's look at the label. See that? I didn't grab this before I talked about the label. Very proud of myself. All right, so this is the same imagery I used for the tap handle last year. I just had to expand it to put the words on. So it's a hand coming out of a graveyard for a soul grabber. There's kind of a loose theme to Halloween Horror Nights 27 about a soul collector. And instead of saying soul collector, I called it soul grabber. That's where the name comes from. 7.5 ABV. That's the number. This is a 7.5% beer. That's not what I intended. I don't know what I did. I never measured the other one, I don't think. Maybe this has always been a 7.5, and I don't remember. I'm only saying I didn't measure it because I don't remember being 7.5, so I'm guessing I didn't. But it's a big beer, and it's deceiving. Well, we'll talk about that with the taste. So let's get to the label. We're still on the label. Let's continue to the label. It says our sleeper hit is on the left side. Our sleeper hit of Halloween 2017. It's Halloween. We need a dark beer. It says, you know what? I still have. What is this, number 9? I have 4 episodes to go. I'm going to find one label that's correct. I can't believe I did that. Of all things, we need a dark beer. Okay, we needed a dark beer. Too many whiners voted against a black IPA. Too many tender palates gagged at the idea of a stout. So we made an amazing beer just to shut everyone up. And then my serving suggestion is pour it in the glass and strut away like it ain't no thing. It's because I did not expect this beer to be as popular as it was last year. And I was kind of proud of myself. I had a little bit of a strut. I'm not ashamed to admit. Over on the right side of the label, it says, we started with a simple, solid milk porter recipe. Brewed, let the fermentation start, and then things got fun. We toasted pounds of shredded coconut and then unpacked pounds of cacao. I should say ounces. That's not a typo. I didn't think of that it was ounces versus pounds. But we unpacked ounces, I guess better said, of cocoa nibs and threw them all in the fermenter. The result was a tasty milk chocolate coconut porter. That was a hit of our 2017 Halloween event. So, all right, here we go. This will be actually the first time I've tasted this after being bottle conditioned, because everything else, the other version and the ones I've had this year are kegged. So I know the kegged one is good. I'm curious what this is like. So let's find out. First, going for the hiss test. We got it. We got a hiss. Not a lot of activity in the neck again. No, the farther we get into the series, the closer we are to when these beers were made. So kind of pushing the boundaries of whether or not these are fully conditioned or not. And this might be the first one that really tests that theory, but let's see. And we got carbonation. Okay, so we might get some more as time goes. But we get some carbonation. Head retention is gone. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So let's see what the aroma is. Okay. On this one, on the bottle version, it's like all alcohol. That's not usual for this beer. It is all, yeah. Okay, I can get some chocolate now, but when that head was dissipating, it was just burning off alcohol. So a little chocolate now, a little alcohol. It's surprising I'm not getting a coconut. Let's see what the taste is like, though. Oh, okay. Where there's no aroma and coconut aroma, there is a ton of coconut and taste. That's the first thing you taste. So it's there. It's there. Coconut, chocolate, then alcohol. Those are the 3 major ones in this bottle. Now, the only thing I think that could be different from being in the bottle and being in the keg is that the keg is properly carbonated. This just might not be ready yet. In fact, I'll go ahead and tell you, the other 5 bottles of these are still at room temperature. This was pulled early, so this might not be fully conditioned. It is fully fermented. That taste is right there, but it is, the mouthfeel is a little, I want to say thin, but I think thin is when you mean the beer's watered down. It's the carbonation, it's not what I'm used to with this beer. So I don't think this is fully conditioned. It's not that anything was wrong with the beer, it's that I opened it early, which I knew I was doing. So let me taste it again. But apart from that, the rest of the taste profiles are coming through on the bottle, which I didn't really have any reason to believe it wouldn't, because it was the same beer and it was already fermented. So it's coconut, milk chocolate, and then followed by the nothing really falling behind it other than the finish of the beer taste. But in this case, I think I'm getting a stronger kind of hit of alcohol on my palate because the carbonation is in there to kind of, I don't know what it does physically. I'm not going to say it like as a little gas blanket or something, but I think that tingling, the sensation on my tongue kind of keeps that alcohol taste at bay. But there's one way to find out, because I do still have the keg of it. So through the magic of editing, oh my gosh, it's another beer. That was incredible. So here we go. As you can probably guess, this was poured out of the keg, and you can see just by the head alone, the carbonation is properly carbonated on here. So I'm going to see what the difference is, what carbonation does. This is an interesting test, what carbonation does to this particular beer. I have had this before. I think I made that kind of clear in the opening. It's amazing what the carbonation does for this beer, because obviously there's carbonation in here. I can't even bring the head back. So this isn't ready yet. I can kind of bring it back. No, I can't bring the head back, but there's carbonation in here. This one wasn't ready yet. It will be definitely in another week. So I'm going to try it again. But it's really amazing what the difference the carbonation does. So let me see if I can pick out exactly where things are different here to wrap this up. Okay, that is, I can just taste the coconut and the chocolate, but the thing that goes through it is that alcohol. It's that 7.5% alcohol. And I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just that's the predominant flavor. Whereas this, which I just had, but I'll taste it again. It's coconut and milk chocolate. I mean, it's drinking a melted, it's an melted almond joy. No alcohol, no harshness to it. If I had a pint of both of these, I'd be nursing this one. I'd be asking for a dangerous amount of refills on this one. That carbonation just seems to take that alcohol edge completely off of this. It's the same beer. It's the same batch. One's just hasn't finished carbonating. The other one has. So this ended up being a really interesting comparison that I didn't plan to do because I wasn't sure, but I'm glad I had this one on hand to try. I only drank that because I wanted to. So this is very interesting comparison. I don't know how often I'm going to do that, where I'm going to carb one beer in bottle condition or another and see what the difference is when it comes to the carbonation, because it's not something I'm really worried about. Because as you've seen in this series, up until now, it hasn't been a problem, and I don't think it'll be a problem in a week. We'll see. I don't know why it would be, unless for some bizarre reason that strong alcohol killed the yeast, but the yeast tolerance should be much higher than 7.5%. So if there's not enough yeast just to get in the chemical side, if there's not enough yeast in suspension to eat the sugars in here and expel, there's CO2 in one of those. If there's not enough yeast in suspension to eat the sugars that I bottled this with and expel CO2, then the carbonation is light. I think it's a matter of age, but maybe not. Maybe not. So very interesting episode for me to have recorded. I hope it was interesting to watch. If you're new to the series, hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell at the top to get our notifications, and leave questions, comments, suggestions below. I'll be happy to answer them as fast as I can. So, all right. I forgot to give the score, whether I'm going to give it a point or not. It's a point. I think we knew this was a point going into it. If it's a beer I made last year and I made this year, it's definitely a point. And I'll do it the way it was originally done, in a keg. So that makes that 7 for 13 so far. All right, so that is it. Thank you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with beer number 10. So until then, I will see you in that next episode.
Thank you for watching Is It Beer Yet Video Edition. Is It Beer Yet is part of the neozaz.com Internet Entertainment Network. Visit neozaz.com for all our podcasts, including the original Is It Beer Yet Home Brewing audio series. Follow our social media pages for more on this project and all the beers and brewing we do at neozaz.com. We're Neozaz Podcasts on Facebook, Neozaz on Instagram, and at Neozaz on Twitter. If you'd like to learn how you can help support the work we do and get access to exclusive content, check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/neozaz. And you can always send us a message directly at the email address podcast@neozaz.com. Thanks again for watching.